Everyone, I'm Allie, and I'm excited to show you this ensemble pendant or pin or brooch, or it even would look really cool as a hair barrette as well too. This is going to be featuring a bunch of Potomac bead exclusives. So we've got our tubelets in here, our disc or our RounDuo beads and our EVA beads as well too. It's teaching some techniques of how to bezel using a bigger Delica bead, an 8/0, as well as how to keep it in a form that is nice and tight, and rather than things that are kind of flopping all around as you get bigger and bigger in the design. Remember, if you need any materials from this retreat class from our 2024 bead retreat, you can go down below the video and grab all of the material links there that are in the description. Let's get ready to have some fun and get started. So I'm excited to teach this ensemble pendant because we're going to be working on some different techniques. We are working on bezeling with 8/0 seed beads, which you may not have done before. And then we're working on stabilizing it through that peyote bezel, working from the front and having these leaf drops working towards the back and having that stability, because it's going to be really floppy when we start out. And we are going to be going in and having an 8/0 seed bead holding an 18mm Rivoli. This can be used as a pin or a brooch, or certainly as the star pendant of your rope necklace. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to pick up 20 of our 8/0 seed beads. And these are 8/0 Delica beads. So how are they different than regular seed beads? They're going to have a little bit of a bigger hole. They're more cylindrical shape. So there's 5 and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. I'm going to let this drop down to the base of my thread, which is about 4.5, 5 feet of thread. And the first thing I'm going to do is recount, making sure that I have an even count: 5, 10, 15, and 20. If you happen to see any of your beads that are a little bit longer than the others, just kind of push that off to the side. We're going to take this and we are going to tie it into a loop. I'm going to go right over left, left over right. I'm not leaving a ton of thread at the end because I'm going to be just using enough to just tie it off. I'm going to pull that knot tight so I get rid of all that extra thread there. All right. Now that that's pulled nice and tightly, that is going to be the first 2 rows of our peyote stitch, really. From here, I'm going to go through the next 8/0 seed bead after my knot, and I'm going to exit through bead number 1. I'm going to add a 21st bead, or my first bead, in this, what is going to be my 3rd row of peyote. Skip over bead number 2, and I'm going to go through bead number 3. I'm going to repeat this for all of the odd count beads, adding a bead, going through bead number 5. This is peyote stitch. It's going to sit with those beads slightly to the exterior as you're going in. Now, the nice thing with this is because it's 8/0 seed beads, it goes quickly, versus if you were doing this with, I think it's 42 maybe or so, of your 11/0 seed beads. One kind of sticks out to the top there, you want to grab here. When you're doing this, you want to try to keep the thread to the exterior of your Delica bead. What I mean by that is that you're keeping the thread, see how that bead kind of pops up towards the exterior. You're not going to mix it with the thread that's already there. We're going underneath, or over top rather, of the thread that you already have through that interior loop. Every other bead gets added, and we finish up this row of peyote. So I'm going to keep going, adding in 5 more beads, which is going to get me a total of 10 beads on this row, which are going to sit almost like a wheel to the outside of this loop. After you put on your 10th bead here, I want you to step up through bead number 1 from that row. So through the first bead that we added right after that knot. Around the exterior now, we're going to grab our RounDuo beads. I call this ensemble because we're going to be using a lot of different shapes and styles of beads. We're going through the first hole of our RounDuo bead, doesn't matter which one you go, and into that next bead along this 3rd row of peyote where we just added those 10. On go a RounDuo, and then you're going through that bead that's sticking towards the exterior. RounDuo towards the exterior. And you'll notice that the RounDuo fits in and fills the shape, but it is going to start to curve a little bit. Oops, trying not to throw them across the room. Going in here, and you're adding 1 RounDuo the whole way around. So you're going to end up with 10 of those RounDuo beads between each one of your Delica beads. And you'll notice I still have the Delicas out because I'm not finished with those yet. Going in here. When you're doing this also, you want to make sure that all of your RounDuos, that anytime you're working with a multi-hole bead, that both holes of that bead are open. One more out. I'm just going to double check that guy. Good to go. And then we're going to go through the RounDuo, or through the 8/0 rather, and then through the RounDuo as well to kind of lock that in place. Now, our next row is going to sit in front of the Delicas. So I'm going to go through that second bead of the 8/0s, and we're going to add another row of our 8/0s. However, this row of our 8/0 beads, we are going to go ahead and add an 11/0 on each side of our Delica bead. So my 11/0s are this yellow color here. You're not even going to see these. Those are kind of tucked to the back. Pour those out. And we're going to add an 11/0, a Delica bead, and an 11/0. Skip over the RounDuo there and go to the next one of your beads sticking up. And this is going to sit just right in front. Oops, sorry, skipped over one too many. It's going to sit right in front of the RounDuo beads. And just like we've been doing, we're going to do this again 10 times. So what you're seeing here is the start of the back of the piece where it is going to be the bezel. 11/0, bead, 11/0. Skip over the RounDuo and go back into the 8/0 that sits right after it. You're going to do this the whole way along the project, getting that second row or that second level of your Delica beads onto the project, pushing that first or that interior row towards the center. Once you're through this, we are going to do another row of our Delica beads. So the first 2 rows of the Delicas are towards the front of the project. These next 2 rows that we're doing are the back. So this is kind of row number 1 at the back that I'm completing right here, going back through bead number 1 that our thread was coming out of. We're going to step up through the first 11/0 and through that first 8/0 Delica bead that we just added on to that row. From here, we're going to add another row of 8/0 seed beads, going through just the 8/0s. So the 11s are there to kind of provide the space for it to sit up. And then you're going to fill in that space and that void and ignore the 11s, just going right through your next Delica bead. As we're doing this, it's going to start to create a cupping effect. This is where you get out your lovely 18mm Rivoli. And I have this turned over to the back to show we're doing the beads right there. Our Rivoli is going to sit inside this exterior hole, and then we're going to bring those towards the center with another row of our Delicas as well. So you can put your Rivoli in there if you want, and what that's going to do is just kind of help stabilize it, but it's not necessary. It's up to you. As you go around, you will want to get it in, but you don't need it in right away. Adding a Delica bead, you're making sure again that you're going to the top of the Delica bead. You can see as I pull, I'm pulling my thread towards the center of the project. This is a useful thing to realize that as you're doing any sort of bezels, you're going and pulling kind of towards the center of the bead that you're bezeling around. That gets the nicest tension. You can see here we're doing that next row of our stitch here. And around it goes, and see how I'm kind of pulling it up and towards the center, which will push those 11/0s down. Doing nice and tight here. I've got one more to put on. After I put this one on, I'm going to step up through bead number 1 that we added in that row. So through the last bead that has the 11/0s on the side, and then bead row number 1. And see how that right away just holds your bezel in place. Super quick and easy. We're going to go around one more time here, pulling the beads in even more, and we're going to add one 11/0 between them. So I'm coming out of bead number 1 here. I'm going to add an 11/0, and I'm going to go into bead number 2. We just added 10 beads. We're going to sew through them all, adding an 11/0 between each one. 11-0 through the next bead. Going the whole way around, again, pulling in towards that interior as you go around. Once you are finished with this row here, adding just an 11-0 between all of those Delicas that you just added, I want you to go around it and sew around one more time. Anytime you're in the exterior of something, one more time. Anytime you're in the interior of something, more than one time around as well. So go ahead and add your 11 or your 10 11-0 seed beads in, and then sew back through all of them and the 8-0 seed beads as well. At this point here, we're done with the back of the piece as far as the bezeling is going. And the front of the piece, we'll just add an 11-0 seed bead between each, or a 15-0 between each as we get to the front, depending on kind of how your tension is. What we're going to do right now is we are going to add an 11 and a 15 between each of our RounDuo beads through that same first hole. So my thread is currently coming out of my loop after reinforcing. I'm going to take it through the peyote stitch there, through the 11, going back a row of peyote and out, through the 11 that sits to the front and out. Now you can see we're to the front side. We're going to go through that first hole of our RounDuo bead, and we're going to get ready to create our little flowers. So for this, I'm using my 11-0 in my my 15-0 in my silver and my 11-0 in my yellow to bring a little bit of that yellow kind of naturey pop. You're going to grab one of your 11-0s, one 15 and one 11, and sew over to the next RounDuo bead. And that's just going to kind of fill the space. Now, it's going to be more beads than you need in that space, but don't worry because we're going to pull them down to get that floral look. So see how it's kind of sitting on an angle? That's totally fine. The main thing that you want to make sure is that you're not going through the second hole. You're just going through the first hole as you go the whole way around, adding in these beads between that first hole of the RounDuo bead. All right, so our Rivoli is kind of growing basically. And we've gone through and we've added in those seed beads. You can see they sit a little bit funky. They don't want to sit nicely. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the first 11-0 and the first 15-0, and we're going to come out. So we're coming out right after that 15-0 seed bead there. We're going to pull our beads towards the front, grabbing one 11-0 seed bead, and then see that Delica bead that sits nicely right in front of every RounDuo. We're going to sew through it. So we're going to sew through that Delica bead that sits right in front of the RounDuo, pulling that towards the center to get our little floral design. Add one more of your 11-0, and then you're going to sew into the next 15. Pulling that down towards the front. See how that little flower occurs? It sits so pretty and easily in there. 11-0 goes on, sewing through that Delica bead. So the 8-0 Delicas are great because you can get in there without too much needle finagling. And see how then that flower, just like my little cornflower blue one, sits right in front there. 11-0, go through your next 15, kind of pulling it towards the center there. Grab your 11 and through the next one of your Delica beads. So you're going to go the whole way around with these little, with these 10 little sections of your seed beads and pull those towards the interior to get our floral design. As we make this pendant grow now, you can see those little flowers going all the way around. They're so cute. I'm going to grab my last one here, go up through that first 11 or first 15-0 rather. And then at the same time, I'm going to go through the 11-0 that sits right after it. This is because my next section here, as I go through, and I love how tightly this pulls here, we are going to go through our first hole of our RounDuo bead in order to step up to the second hole of the RounDuo bead. The RounDuo bead here is going to hold an EVA bead between that second hole. It's going to be floppy. Don't worry, that's something that we are working on. You're going to pick up a 15-0. You're going to go through the EVA bead, going through the exterior and coming out the interior of the V. When you're doing so, you're going to grab your next color of your RounDuo beads. And this color is the white Lila Vega Luster. That Lila Vega Luster bead you're going to do through hole number 1. Then at the top here, we are going to add some seed beads that kind of sit along the top of it. And when we do this, we're going to add a 15, an 11, and a 15. So 15, get that little bit of pop of yellow on the exterior, and a 15. You're then going to come down through the second hole of the RounDuo, as well as through the EVA bead. Make sure that not a lot of extra thread is showing here, kind of pushing it towards the project. You can grab your seed beads usually right there at the top of the RounDuo, give a little pull down, grab a 15-0, and through the next RounDuo bead. And see how that's just going to sit as that little poking section above. I'll do it once again for you. 15, EVA bead through the exterior towards the interior, RounDuo bead, 15, 11, 15. Push that all down next to your project, nice and tight. Go through the RounDuo bead, through the EVA bead. Pull again that nice and tight because we don't want to see any extra thread showing. Grab a 15-0 and on through the next RounDuo bead. And there you have it. Continue this the whole way around, adding in a total of your 10 EVA and RounDuos. Once you're done with the piece, you can kind of see that these pieces are a little bit flimsy. They're bending different ways. It's hard to kind of keep them up. If you're doing it as an ornament on the tree, maybe that works. But if you want to wear it as a pendant or you want to wear it as a brooch, what we want to do is basically make it so these sit towards the front and it's not going to be as flimsy when you're looking at it. It's a unit. So to do that, we're going to be adding some of our tubelip beads. Now you can use any bead. They don't have to be tulip beads. I just like the stability that they offer. And we are going to be going through the back of the piece, going through that 8-0 Delica that sticks up basically between the iris duos there, or between rather the EVA beads there. Once again, on the opposite side of your RounDuo bead. And we are going to be adding some seed beads into that. So how am I getting there? I'm going to get there basically going back through to the top of one of my pieces here. So I'm going back through the EVA bead, through the 15-0, back through the first one, exiting through the top of the RounDuo bead, giving a nice tight pull to kind of lock that all in place, going through my seed beads, and exiting my seed beads. As I exit my seed beads, I'm going to bring it to the back of the design here. And I just have my tubelets and my 15s and my 11s. I don't have any of the other beads out because we're done using them. And I'm going to add a series of 1, 2, and 3 of my 15-0s. Or you can do, if you want to add a little bit of color, you can go ahead and do 2 15s, 1 11-0. We're going to grab one of our tubelet beads, and then we are going to grab an 11 and a 15. From here, I'm going through the Delica bead that sits right after that bead, in front of your RounDuo bead. Coming out the opposite end, 15, 11, tubelet, 11, 1, 2 15s. Going to the next top of the RounDuo. If you don't want it to be on the exterior, you can go right through the RounDuo. I'll show you quick what that looks like. So not going through the seed beads, just going right through the RounDuo. You can go down and up, or you can go, again, right through those seed beads. So you're going to continue on the exterior line here, just going through those 3 seed beads along the top and adding in the tubelets. So once again, 1, 2 15-0s, 1 11, tubelet, 11, 15, go down to the RounDuo, through the 8-0 seed bead right behind the RounDuo, and pulling that nice and tightly. When you spin around then, you see just that little hint of yellow 11s on either side, and it makes it nice and stable and firm. So you're going to go around the whole way, adding a total of 20 of your tubelet beads going up and down, creating that nice exterior row. After you're done adding your beads along the back here, and I do want to mention, if you want to make one a little bit bigger, you can make a pocket basically to put a rope or a cord through. You can also feed one through there right now as well, and it'll kind of sit up at the top. Along the back, you could glue your pin backing to the back of the project. And then also another idea is if you want to, you can bring your needle and thread down through the 15-0s, out the 11s here, and then go around and add a 4mm bicone with 15-0s on the side between each one of those here. So I kind of went back and forth, honestly, if I wanted the bicone there. So if you want the bicone there, I'll just drop it in to show you what it looks like. You just basically drop a bicone in between each one for a little bling on the outer edge. Optional, I'm not going to do that for this one. I'm going to keep it just as the shapes being the focus. Once you're done with this, one thing you can do if you want to is add a little of those silvers in the interior of the design. You can see here I have an 11-0, but it's not necessary. So it's up to you whether or not you want to add that little bit of metal in the interior of the design. But again, you don't need to. What I'm going to do is come down through the tubelets and the seed beads and the 11-0 there and the 15. And I'm going to sew my way over through the peyote stitch all the way over. And you can see how much more firm and foundational this is. You can always also glue some of, if you want to, along the back here, some of the ultra suede or the ultra backing or the bead tech backing to it prior to putting on the pin back as well. It goes through here. You're going to bring your thread out towards the starter thread. Grab both thread ends, right over left, left over right, tying this down from one another. Then you're going to take your thread burner or thread zap that's near you, burn through the thread ends, and burn those edges down flat next to the project. Again, if you want to do the pin backing, you're going to do the pin backing, and then I usually suggest putting a little bit of one of the stiff stuff or the coating on top of it. Or if you want to, you can keep it as a pendant going through those tubelets for this beautiful ensemble pendant. Thank you guys so much for joining in this fun ensemble piece. It's really, again, great for a pendant, great for a pin or a brooch, and a really fun combination of some beautiful check shapes. Remember, if you need any materials because you weren't at our retreat, go ahead and look below the video in the description. We'll put little links to get back to the website there so you can gather up all your materials for your projects. As always, post your projects in their different colorways in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. We can't wait to see them. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.